So Joanna was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joanna was leading this like kick-ass women, and Nolan is part of it, right? Called High Power. And at some point, somehow I got into that group of elite women, and she was leading the sessions. And part of the sessions were doing this like magic trick where she takes someone's story and live, she just kind of like morphs it into like an amazing, memorable story. And I think that's like, it's just kind of, it was an interesting realization. And I knew I want you guys to all see this. So this is kind of my history with Joanna, right? Is that kind of?
Yeah, yes. I think mostly I shouted at a lot of the high power people about taking their game up a level. I know Nolan, I think I've shouted at you in various different environments, but you keep coming back for more, so.
I love you, and I even registered to your own series.
I know.
So you keep seeing me.
Nolan's actually registered for a whole bunch of nonsense, which I will talk about later. So yeah, so I'm going to keep this. Normally I have like a whole ta-da that happens, although you are absolutely getting the sequence, because why not? But so I wanted to approach this a little bit differently, because I am known for my party trick, which we are going to do today, and you're going to judge each other and it'll be fantastic. But I also am on a much bigger journey. And I will say, similar to all of you guys, my journey on this whole idea of shifting how you talk about yourself and how important it is to really have a strategy, an opinion, an idea around how you talk about yourself actually started about 10 years ago. And it was through High Power. When I met the original founder of High Power, I was in the very first cohort. And at the time was an executive at Pandora, the music company. I had just been hired to help them through their hockey stick moment. My previous, what I was known for was I have been in ad technology and the infrastructure and revenue world of ad technology for 25 years. I was super early in that game. And Pandora had brought me in to help them get really big very fast. And I was all like, I got it. But I was sitting with Mona having a conversation around this whole idea of what is it you're known for? How do people talk about you, etc. And Mona leaned across at me and stuck her hand on my knee, because we were partnered up on an exercise, and said, Joanna, they are not going to let you run ad operations at Pandora when you're 50. So you need to figure out who that person is today, start putting in plan B so that by the time you're 50, plan A is in place. And at the time I was like, oh my God, I can't believe she just said that to me. But she was 100% right. And I started on a journey that I feel like, based on what I've read about what Ilana is doing, you guys are all on now. And it's been a journey. I won't say it took me 10 years to get here, but it has been an entire journey along the way. And as what can only be described as a former startup junkie, and I got to work with amazing brands like OpenTable and Pandora and CNET. And if you go back far enough in time, City Search was my first digital party. That whole journey of who are you and how does that conversation happen has really been going on for years for me. And I realized in coming out of Pandora and thinking about my next step, I was like, this is actually something really important, because I look at the guiding principles, the rules, the language, the entire process of how we as human beings both connect and in essence sell our time to each other. And I look at it and I go, this entire supply chain is still anchored in the 20th century industrial complex. It is keywords and labels and productivity, and it's all incredibly binary. You are either this or you are that. We obsess at every level in the organization about titles. And we all know that a title means absolutely bubkiss. absolutely nothing. We all go on and on and on about what skills do you have, what certifications do you have. Like, you can have all of the badges on the planet and still be not very good at what you do. You can also have no badges, no skills, no levels, and be absolutely brilliant. And so why are we still using that language? Why are we still in that construct when the reality is both business and technology have shifted, like technology specifically has shifted from this binary, like ones and zeros world to we're now in much more of a quantum multidimensional world. And I'm like, if you look at human beings in their entirety and what is actually valuable about us, it's actually our complexity, our richness, our multidimensionality. It's all of the extra stuff that's important. And so why aren't we talking about this? That was really my first, like, wait a second, this is all messed up. So FYI, I am on a personal mission to get resumes eliminated from this world of work, job descriptions too, because I think they're equally bad, because literally there is not a worse piece of marketing material created for a product, literally. All it is like, it's like the ingredient list and nutritional information on the label of a can of beans. It tells me about your past and it gives me a bunch of keywords. It tells me nothing else. And I just sit here and I go, talent, and I know a lot of you are running organizations, talent is the most important thing in an organization. Why we buy ourselves like we are a foodstuff is beyond me. So I'm like, kill resumes. What I also, as I was thinking about this idea of you, the product, is you are a product. And the product that you are buying and selling from people constantly is your time. Now, whether you get paid for that or not is a whole different story, but that's the transaction we are doing with everybody. And so I sit here and I go, okay, let's take a step back and look at the language of people again. And then I said, why are we selling ourselves the way we're selling ourselves? This makes no sense. I have many years. I actually started my career in sales. My very first kind of proper job was actually running a very high-end bathing suit store. And I'll tell you, I never sold a swimsuit because somebody walked in the store. I sold a swimsuit because they had a problem that needed to get solved. And so I sit here and go, okay, that's a big issue. Why on earth are we feature dumping ourselves on people? And why aren't we actually talking about what is the value of the product to you, which is your ability to solve problems in the future, justified by what you've done in the past. Add that I am also, as you can tell, a fairly fierce and ferocious woman, and I was a fierce and ferocious woman in tech and all of this sort of stuff. And the whole conversation around diversity and why you want a diverse team, I sit here and I go, why are we all getting our knickers in a twist about, oh, you need to have a diverse team because it helps the bottom line? I don't know anybody who has hired somebody and sat there and gone, oh, this person is going to help me move the bottom line. What a load of hooey. You hire somebody with a diverse background and diverse interests because when you have that, you get the goodies that come with it, which is all of the nuance and richness and amazingness of those people. And yet when we hire people, it is the thing that you are looking for when either you are getting hired or somebody else is going to be hired is actually their potential. Because again, you come back to this whole idea of the resumes. By the time somebody's actually getting into a face-to-face meeting with a hiring manager, whatever the future is, the bona fides are usually kind of the same and a little bit boring, quite frankly. Like, you are qualified if you are getting the interview. And so the decisions, and I know just looking at the room and knowing the kind of people that Ilana has around her, my guess is this is for you as it is as much for your team. The people you have hired because you've been able to see their potential. And it is infinitely easier to see somebody's potential when they look like you and sound like you, infinitely. And so I sit here and I go, okay, so unpack all of that. What are the big lessons that we need to come out of this? One, the whole nomenclature is garbage and we should, well, maybe not throw it out, but it certainly needs a little bit of disrupting. 2, we need to take ownership around what is the product of you and the time that you are selling, and context matters, what do you want matters, et cetera, et cetera. And that the thing that you are actually selling to people is your ability to think in the future. If you don't understand, if the person who is buying your time doesn't understand that, they are not going to buy your time. And the clearer you are about who that is and why it is valuable, the easier it is for people to say yes to that opportunity. Add the last layer of complexity to this, because of course it's human beings and nothing could actually be easy. And in that last layer, it's also the fact that we live in a double-sided marketplace when it comes to people. You choose to work with somebody as much as they choose to work with you. And if you can get that in balance, and there's expectations and understanding about not only your abilities in the past, but your capabilities in the future, then those are when teams really start humming, when things like, well, why aren't I getting the promotion, or why aren't I getting the opportunity, really start to make a fantastic difference. So that's I could go on about this for like hours and hours and hours, but that's the high level around how I'm approaching this very simple idea of how do you answer the question, what do you do? Because, okay, you now know that, for lack of a better term, I am now a product marketer for people, salesperson for people. My job is to say, okay, what is this product? How do we make it look awesome so that the person they want to sell it to can actually buy that time? So now you know that. How do you actually start thinking about it? And the complexity of that purchase process is as probably, I would say, more complex than highly customizable enterprise software. This is literally the hardest product to sell. It becomes even harder because I know you guys are all in a bit of a career leap, when you are trying to solve a product where all of the features and background information is from one world, and you're saying, I want to pivot into something new, which basically means that all of your label ingredients don't match the label ingredients they potentially want in the future. So how do you then teach people how this world actually could live in this world? This is why my work is really interesting and fun, because the context and the complexity and what everybody wants is really interesting. So I always start with the very simple idea that the first step in this is just the simple, how do you answer the question, what do you do? Because I think it does a lot. So enough of me doing the talking stuff. And Nolan and Judy and Ilana, I'm gonna ixnay you from this opportunity because I know you all far too well. Plus you've all seen this before. Judy, I'm actually like, you're here as well? So nice to see everybody. So who is up for playing with me for a minute? We're going to move into show and tell. God, look at all of the hands go up. Okay. So of those hands that went up, Ilana, who do you think I should do?
I think if Chaim is, he has an interesting leap and he's right in it. So I think that would be an amazing one for him.
All right. I am a fierce and ferocious feminist. Ladies, I want you to notice all the guys put their hands up. Y'all didn't. Why not? Come on. Ladies, if you don't stick your hand up, they can't choose you. I will also say, I'm about to now go down a little gender path for a second because I study this as well. I am not surprised by this because women are culturally and socially rewarded from the minute we figure out that we can get rewarded for something, for being perfect and waiting to be chosen. And if I roll you all back to like your first boy-girl dance at school or whenever you had that first interaction, what happened in that room is all the girls stood there in their little pretty dresses, not standing out too much, not pushing themselves out there, except for the super confident girl who none of us got to be her. But we all waited to be chosen. And all of you guys were either out front going, I am fantastic, although I don't know that I am. And you went into the choosers, or you were up in the bleachers having a complete and utter meltdown going, oh my God, I have to do the asking. What this means is by the time a guy, straight guy, is 30, he has 500% more experience asking for what he wants than a woman. which then if you unpack that, I sit here and I go, why then are we surprised when a woman is sitting in front of you asking for a raise, a promotion, a job, or whatever, that it feels a little weird? And it feels a little weird because we have been socially managed to this idea that women should not do the asking. Plus, when they do ask, because I know they do, and I'm guessing the women on these calls do because they're here, when they do ask, they are less practiced than you are because of the very simple construct of the idea of dating, right? So next time, ladies, stick your hand up. There is no harm in practicing. You never know what's going to happen. I could only pick one person. And guys, when you are interacting with a woman who is maybe not asking as well as you think she could, give her a break and give her another opportunity, because what you often find is that there are layers once you get below the practice element that you wouldn't even know existed. Not everybody has the irrational confidence to just go out and do things the way I have. My entire life was anchored on a set of rules that got broken for me when I moved from the southeast coast of England, where I was just in simple description going to what was only known as like Hogwarts without boys or magic, to Central Texas, where I basically went to a school that could only be described as Friday Night Lights. And in that process, I was only 15 at the time. It was awesome. Plus it was warm. I was so happy. But at the time, I realized that all of the rules of life that I thought were true around how one should be, how one should navigate one's way through life were completely made up, and that they were just cultural and societal. And I had to learn a whole new set of rules about how to navigate through with my community. I also learned that relationships were actually the most critical thing. And so as a 15-year-old, I got the very painful, but really great lesson that why the rules should be the rules, and had to learn how to be confident with it, which is what set me off on a nice little path together. Okay, enough about me. Chaim, it is now
quickly, could I share a quick strategy about this women not raising hands issue?
Yes.
Because I've seen it through my PhD classes, my MBA classes, every conference I've ever been to. And as a man of privilege, not raising my hand doesn't work, because then some other man will just take it. And so I found some success with using my privilege to get the nomination, and then nominating a woman in the room to
giving
take
it to somebody else. That's a good
create
idea.
the safe space for them to do it, and that seems to have some success. I'm not sure how all the psychology works, but so guys in here, you should try it. I think it works.
I think that's a genius idea, and I'm going to share it with lots of people. Thank you very much.
Please do.
Big fan. Yeah, it's, you know, I've been working with everybody from like high school students to super senior executives. Like I am about to do what I'm going to do with you with Ray Dalio. When I was at a conference and he was there and he put his hand up, and I was like, really? You need some help answering the question? What do you do? I was completely and utterly terrified. I will own that. And absolutely everybody I have worked with has got a little voice in their head saying, well, no, you can't do that. Who do you think you are? I mean, certainly there are some narcissists on the planet who just think they're awesome otherwise, but every single person I've worked with has a bit of an inner critic. We are, as women, just tend to listen to them a little bit louder. Anyway, Chaim, back to you. Okay, so we have not met yet. Very nice to meet you. Where are you? Just out of curiosity.
I'm in Switzerland, somewhere in the Swiss Alps.
Oh, that's right. Okay. And so the first thing I want to ask you is, we have just met. I'm very jealous that you're in Switzerland. Lucky you. I'm in the Petri dish of America. How, if I was just to meet, like, let's just pretend I could actually travel outside of the country. And I am now, I've gone to Vevey because I want some chocolate. I've come to Switzerland and I say, oh, hi, I'm nice to meet you. What do you do? How do you answer the question today to a random stranger?
Good. When you say, how do I answer it today, you mean after I heard your speech now, or how would I have answered it before?
No, how would you just like normal, like, let's pretend we're at, well, you know what? Let's pretend we're at Davos. Let's get all super fancy. We're at Davos or something fancy like that. And so, you know, you're around people who could potentially create an awesome future for you. And so you want to have a decent answer to the question, but like, you're at Davos, how do you answer the question? What do you do?
I am an economist. turned cognitive specialist. I have trained and I understand how people think, and I can get them to think better, and through that to function better in their lives, in whatever they do.
That was actually pretty fantastic.
I'm sorry.
No, why are you apologizing? That was pretty fantastic. Well, because most people, and let's be real here, because this is a teach and a demo at the same time. Most people, let's be real, would say, like, I'm the VP of blank, blank, blank at blank company, right? That's what most of our introductions, you actually talked about what is it you do for people in the future, which I will say, I've done this demonstration several thousand times. I'd say 1 in 500. It's a very rare case that somebody actually talks about that.
Now, they've done some training.
You are going to want to hope to do that. Okay, so here's the other thing. So you remember how I talked about how this is a double-sided marketplace? Yeah. And I also know that you are in a bit of a transition. I don't know what it is. One of my philosophies around how do you think about how to answer your question of like, who am I? What do I do? How do I talk about my future self, which is in essence what we're doing here, is context matters. So my example, hence the sequence, is I use Cinderella to tell this story. When the fairy godmother shows up in the Cinderella story, the fairy godmother does not say, you have weaknesses that you need to work on, or you are broken in any way. All the fairy godmother goes is, oh, you want to get to the ballroom floor and dance with the prince. Well, let me just tell you, sweetie, that if you show up at the front gate in that little bad dress and those little sad shoes and not a fly ride, they are not even going to let you pass the decision makers. We need to judge this whole situation so that you can get to the ballroom floor. And if we get you to the ballroom floor, then you and the prince can do you, and this is your exact game now, but let's judge this whole situation. Let's also give bonus points for Cinderella for being an epic risk taker, because I would not have gotten into the pumpkin unless I had seen that magic multiple times. But I am now your fairy godmother. You, Chaim, are Cinderella. So my next question, because context matters, is what is your ball? Like, what is it you want to do? Like, if people understood beyond this, you understand economists turn cognitive theorist, how to think better. Is that what you are going to do, want to do? Where are you shifting into?
I'm shifting this into the world of work.
Okay.
The world of work today talks a lot of excuse, expression, blah, blah, because you mentioned it about CVs. I'm mentioning it about the whole notion of people being upskilling, cross-skilling, becoming lifelong learners, being critical thinkers, being creative, you name it. But nobody has really an idea of how to do it because people don't understand how the mind works. Where I come from, we do know how the mind works, and I'm taking that knowledge and I'm transitioning it and building it and adapting it for the world of work. So everything you know from the world of L&D, HR, creating human capital, real human capital, for both companies, but also for the people themselves, for employees themselves. That's where I'm taking this.
Okay. And is this so that's a lot of what you're doing. Is this as Chaim Inc., or are you looking for a job who wants to hire you to do this?
No, it's Chaim Inc.
Okay. So you want to start your own thing.
Yeah.
Okay. That's super helpful. So now I have the context of all of that. And for everybody, as I think about that, like part of my thinking process is I sit here and I go, okay, so Chaim not only needs to sell his idea about the future of work, but also himself, because you all know as executives in companies that people buy the person before they buy the idea. There is not a venture capitalist I've met who doesn't say, oh, I would back a mediocre idea, but as long as the person is out there and is somebody I can get behind, because that's, again, that comes back to the who are we buying and what are we all about.
So one more thing that I'm just throwing this in because it's part of this, it's which all the gang that is on this call knows. I'm now writing a book about this.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm in Switzerland, because I need some quiet. I'm writing a book about cognition for the world of work in order to A, crystallize this, but B, it's a positioning work as well. So whatever we do, you know, this is part of the ball.
Okay. Okay. Like if we were having a longer conversation, I'd probably then have a whole curiosity path where I'd say, like, as you are selling you, do you want to get the idea, or do you want to get people to give you opportunities to talk about the book you are going to have written? Again, it comes back to the combination when you're selling any product is not just the, how does this product solve problems in the future, but what problems do you actually want it to solve? And so it's really like looking at yourself that way, but I'm not going to do that today because I just want to get a bit of a demo here. I know that you, through this program, have all had to have a self exploration around who you are, your brand, all of those sorts of things. Like if I was to ask you the question, what at the end of the day, well, maybe not even at the end of the day, what for this phase of your life do you want to be known for? I clearly hear the intersection of cognition in the world of work. Is it that, or is there something tighter that you have created for yourself?
You spoke before about potential.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that you know, like what people are looking for always is potential. All this is about potential, but in a real sense, because you see, when you talk about potential, potential is an empty word unless you have two conditions that you meet. One is that you precisely know what a person's potential is, and B, that you can bring it out in someone. Otherwise, it's blah blah. You know, like when my kid's teacher says, "Oh, Chaim, your son has a lot of potential." You know, I don't know whether you've ever heard that.
Mm-hmm.
What he says is, "Your son is lazy. He could be somewhere else." So when you talk about somebody's potential, unless you're very precise about understanding where this person can go, and you have the tools to bring it out in them, it's you know, it leads nowhere. And what we do is by people getting to use their mind better, sharper, more precisely, we're able for them to really get to where they can and should be.
Okay. Do you have because you've given me actually I've got a lot to work with here, but do you have a one phrase version of this that you have, or is that what you're hoping maybe I'll be able to create for you?
But the one phrase I always use, and I don't know whether it's good enough, but that's for lack of better.
It's a good start.
A good start. That is that I can get people to better think, learn, and through that to better function in life.
Think, learn,
wherever
function.
in life there. Yeah.
Okay. I have enough. Okay. That's actually really go to architecture. So I'm going to start. So let me just play with this for a second in my head. Here's what you could say. And this is me riffing for a second. That the opportunity, so you could say, somebody says, what do you do? You could say the opportunity for human capital in this modern working world is all anchored in potential. But potential is just something captured. It's not acted upon unless the person understands how to think about their potential, how to learn through their potential so that they can function and actually act on their potential. And it's when you bring those three things together that you can maximize somebody's opportunity in the world of work. And I am building an entire thought process around, now I'm getting all fluffy at the end and I don't like it.
No, I'm
building a whole process around that. Yeah, to actually allow, to allow people and human capital to better think, learn, and function. How did that feel for you? Thank you. Now, You are brilliant, and clearly we need to talk later because I love what you're doing, and I'm obsessed with potential too. There's another piece here. So when I'm doing an introduction, there's a couple of things that are going on in my head, because I'm sure some of you are like, hang on, how the heck did she just do that, having a quick chat? There's absolutely a formula. And the formula is the same formula if I was going to be selling you this little jar of lip balm. It is, what is the problem that needs to be solved? How do you solve the problem? And this is the solution. It's how you sell every product on the planet. It's not how we do it for human beings. So all I did there was with Chaim was take, what is the idea? What does he believe? What is a bit of framework around that idea? And by the way, he's the idea. So that you go, I like that idea. I'm curious about the solution. And now I'm curious about you. Because the whole piece of that first introduction is just to get somebody to go, wait a second, what? Tell me more. And once you get to have a conversation, that's when the deeper conversations can happen, and context and all of this stuff. The other bonus thing that happens there is if somebody hears that and they're like, whatever, well, something tells me they're not your client or kind of customer that you want to go for. You're looking for, because we're in a double-sided marketplace, people who go, whoa, that's really interesting. Now, another way of approaching that is, I really loved what you said about potential being an empty word, because the other way to create what I call authentic intrigue, and it has to be authentic, because if it's not, like, we have an internal radar for inauthenticity, and the minute we smell it with people, we just go, whoa, no, hang on a second, I'm not going to go there. My perfect example of this is Hillary Clinton. Part of why I believe she did not actually win the ticket, don't get me started about Russians, sorry if there's any Russians on the call, I know it wasn't you, it was other people, is for most of Hillary Clinton's career, she was showing up as the first lady of fill in the blank. And while she was the first lady of fill in the blank, she was inauthentic in that job, in my opinion. When she showed up as the Secretary of State, I went, oh, that's who you are. And I was like, okay, now I know who you are. This is obviously an authentic role for you. I understand and believe you. But here's the problem. She had been telling a story for many, many years about who she wasn't, which is why she got a lot of there's something about her I just don't like nonsense, because it was inauthentic. Same thing happens with people. So authentic intrigue. Your conversation, your comment about potential being an empty word. And I didn't have the right language for the develop it, but that's another way you could approach it. You could say, when it comes to human capital, the real value is a human's potential, but potential itself is an empty word. Because without either knowing what it is or being able to identify how somebody can maximize it, it's just something that doesn't go anywhere. And when it comes to people, it's always about going somewhere, because humans innately want to grow. And so if you can take somebody's potential and make it a full word as opposed to an empty word, well, then you've got something to talk about. And that's what I talk about. So I said nothing about your cognitive stuff or anything like that, but that's another way of bridging. So just, put up your right, this is my left hand. This is my right hand. If you liked version 1, I'm curious, let's get feedback from everybody of the introduction. And then what about who wants version 2? Whoops.
Can you repeat both?
Yeah. No. No. Here is the one flaw of my my thing is I can never say what I just said, because because I've got the formula of idea solution, I'm creating it as I speak. I am an engineer's worst nightmare, because I think and talk at the same time, which 90% of the time means I have no idea what actually came out of me. Plus I'm constantly, I do think there's a bit of alchemy in here. I'm channeling people, weird stuff has happened. This is why, however, I am recording this session, because I will send this recording to Ilana to share with all of you guys. It's also when you work with me directly or you go through any of the program, we record everything, because at the end of the day, everybody just wants me to craft their language. I think it'd be a really interesting exercise for this group to actually say, like, here is version 1 of version 2. Because here's the other thing that you really have to think about when you're thinking about how do you talk about yourself is not only how do you use the problem solution architecture, but like a product, you should market test your language. So, and I'm actually going to give you some really specific instructions on this. So, Chaim, when you get this language back, I want you to, and probably some people in this group, I would also suggest some people outside of this group as well, but go find 5 people who know you and love you already, think you're amazing, who are already super fans, because you don't need the bad people yet. Get the super fans first and say, hey, I met this slightly weird lady the other day who taught me how to ask the question, what do I do, in a completely different way. And I would like to practice it on you. And I'm interested to what you think about some of this positioning as somebody who understands how we think. I use the word practice on purpose because you are going to be a complete and utter train wreck the first time you say it because you have not said how you talk about yourself. People are not used to saying problem solution, I'm the solution. They're used to, in essence, product vomiting on themselves, on other people, right? So you're going to sound weird. It is totally fine, by the way, to just read it, although I will also caveat how we speak and how we read are 2 different languages, and you need to know what it is you're trying to do here. So again, context matters. Plus, the other reason for saying I want to practice this on you is we live in a world now of kind of almost endless feedback of you're right and you're wrong. And it's a bit like, for those of you that have had children, people felt very comfortable giving you feedback on your children's names before the baby was born. After the baby is born, not so much, right? You don't actually want feedback that you are broken because you're being a bit vulnerable. You actually want feedback against what it is they heard. And so whenever I do the practice thing is by saying the word practice up front, you're allowing the other person to go, oh, this could be a bit of a mess, and I'm not actually going to be here to give them feedback on what it is. So you're then going to do whichever of the 2 introductions you want. At the end of it, because this is a little different, they're going to go, oh my God, that's an enormous amount. Hang on a second. And they're going to have all sorts of things they say. They will probably also say, but you're also really great at X and X and X and X. They're going to talk about a lot of other stuff that you're amazing at. Enjoy the love for the moment. Enjoy the feedback. Write anything down that you're like, ooh, I want to capture that. But let them go for a second because they will. You should enjoy the glow. The only question I really want you to ask after you practice, and this is for everybody who wants to practice this, is the question, what did you hear? Because when you ask the question, what do you hear? 2 things happen. 1, you are going to get immediate feedback on what actually landed. So I'm going to pick somebody. Carrie, I'm going to put you on the spot. Can I have you unmute? Yes, come on, you can do it. Are you not in a position we can hear you?
I apologize. I'm not in a position to respond. I've got a 12-year-old yelling at me from upstairs, so I apologize. I'm sorry. That's also why I didn't raise my hand.
12, well, it's a new world on all of this. Oh, we lost Judy. So Nolwenn, I know you have played this game a little bit before. Can we chat with you instead?
Sure, on what I've heard.
Awesome. Yeah, so you just heard my 2 versions of my introduction from Chaim. I know you know him a little bit as well, but what did you hear from that? Like what landed with you?
What landed with me is that a lot of people are usually talking about potential, but it doesn't mean anything. And he can bring it into really something meaningful and really help people concretely reach their potential versus just reminding empty words.
Awesome. Did you know this before the call?
I mean, I know a bit Chaim, so I know a bit of what he's up to.
Yeah.
But I think I was not present enough to the fact of the emptiness of the word usually versus, hey, we need to bring it concretely to the potential, not saying, hey, potential, but maybe bring it concretely.
Awesome.
Joan?
Yeah.
This is Doron here.
Hi, Doron.
So I want to put you on the spot for a second because I think in both versions that you were trying to say, you totally ignored something that is huge for what Chaim is trying to do, and you limited the work he's doing for job-related context. I think he has a bigger idea, a bigger implication, which is carries into life, and with new generations talking about work-life balance and not necessarily maximizing the job market as an ultimate goal. That's a big miss. So I just want to make a comment for Chaim.
Yeah, so Chaim, I think this is really great feedback for you, because it comes back to what is the idea you want people to go. Now, Doron, thanks for the feedback. My commentary back to you is the goal in this was to teach you the formula and show you a real example of somebody's. So if you work with me personally, we spend an hour on the conversation around what is the context, and there's actually quite a lot of pre-work that goes along with it, because I would never be so bold as to say I can come up with how you should introduce yourself in that period of time. I have one client who I've been doing this with for 4 years, and we actually do an annual 5-hour meeting where we look at everything: where she is, what it is she's doing, what is the story she wants to tell, how is she telling that story, how is she teaching her audience, all of those sorts of things, because the clearer you are about who you are and what it is you want, the easier it is for people to say yes, I think has really dramatic impact for people. So there's that piece there. Now, what I thought was interesting for Chaim and Nolwen's reaction is, this is the other piece of what you're doing when you're doing an introduction, is you're teaching your network how to talk about you when you are not in the room. Because this is actually what happens in all of these conversations is when you start thinking about what is it I want people to remember about me, all of those things, the adage of every decision made about you and your opportunities is made in a room that you're not in is true. And as it's true, there's really only 2 questions. One, do they even know that you exist? Like, are they even aware that you have brilliant things that you can bring to the table? And how do you create a strategy that works for you to make sure you're in that consideration set? And then 2, if they are talking about you, what is it they're saying? And in Nolwen's case now, Chaim, I'm guessing that if Nolwen said, oh, we need to bring my friend Chaim in, she introduced you that way, you'd be pretty happy with that idea? Yes? Were you pleased with what she said?
I would, but I would tweak it, and I want to say something that has to do with Doron, and I bring it back to Noam. Okay, yeah. Doron is right, but I want to ask you, Joanne, about, and I tell you where he's right and what I did purposely. That type of work, when you talk about cognition applies to every single bit we do from the moment we get up to the moment we go to sleep, not just work. Right. It's for the way we educate kids and for the way kids learn. It's for the way our elderly people can function. Everything revolves around that. However, you gotta be, concise. You gotta be very, very, when I'm in Davos, when you ask me what's the bowl, well, the bowl tonight may not be the bowl for tomorrow night. There may be a different bowl. So that's why I took it very specifically into an area, into a very specific area that this is going in now. However, Doron is right that this is much wider, potentially. And back to, therefore, to, where we were with Nolan is, that's why I liked, Nolan basically repeated your second introduction.
Right.
And I raised my hand for the first introduction. And there were reasons why, which we don't have to discuss now. But one is that the word cognition is just so different from the word potential. Cognition is mind, it's brain, it's neuro, it's thinking, it's, it's like, it's a rocket, it's an engine, it's a rocket engine.
Yeah.
Okay. This is, and so there are 2 different introductions. They may be for different people in different settings, as you said.
I have a question, Joanna.
Yeah.
In regard to the 2 ways you presented Chaim, Chaim, you started talking about that, but what about having various versions for various events? Even if you're pitching, for, I don't know, an investor or whatever, different people, different pitches. So why not having the potential one, which is a little bit more vague than the one Chaim was talking about now, with an actual product of, dealing with cognition in the work phase or whatever, and having like 3 or 4 different versions that you play around with.
Yeah. So you're all right. 100% context matters. And I say this, so how I introduce myself is different. Like I just was, as I mentioned, I was just on a call with about 100 people on the Women in Bio. This entire presentation was different. We had a very different format and how I taught them through the process and how I talked about it, because I knew the audience here was going to be different, which is like this entire process of making a connection with another human being is ultimately personalized. But it is both sides of the equation. And if you're going to, in this scenario, Davos, to connect with people and get to know them, we're just making something up. My guess, and what the assumption I could make about that, is the first step in this introduction is to get somebody to go, wait a second, that's interesting, tell me more. Which is then when you can start to unpack all of the detail of all of the years and years of thinking that Chaim has put into what it is he do, and you can get into the richness and depth. But that is that initial, hey, do I want to get to know you sort of situation, right? Especially like if you walked in and you were Bill Gates doing that, well, guess what? You're Bill Gates, and everybody's going to be all like, yes, I'm assuming, what is it you want to know? My only thought for you around do you have a different one for every single situation is also, so you've learned that there's a whole lot of stuff here, but part of what I actually teach people is how to sell themselves in a way that doesn't make, like my goal for everybody is to get you right up to the line of bragging, but not crossing over, because it means you are selling the very best version of you without having to be an asshole about it. And I also am well aware that how you do that in the United States of America is very different from how you do that in Europe, is very different from how you do that in Asia. And again, context matters when you're working in a multicultural scenario. So all of that matters in this. But the other thing that is really important, and why I do the go out and beta test and teach your network how to talk about you, is one, none of us really do that. If we do that, it's through writing books, podcasts, tweeting on social media, whatever it is through those, what I call digital and other marketing activities. And the reality is you start to be known for something when that is consistent over time. So in the world of advertising, it used to be that if you were selling a new product to somebody, which is what you are all in essence doing by going through this career leap journey, when you are selling a new product to somebody, if you're selling a new clothing line or a new technology, it used to be in the old world of marketing that you had to show the product to somebody at least 7 times before they would remember it. In this world of digital noise, it's now up to 18, which is why if you have been looking at, some tool or something on the internet, that product seems to follow you around on the internet like a crazy person, because the advertising team is trying to get what they call the frequency of you seeing that thing up over time. It's why I'm in Silicon Valley, if I say Sheryl Sandberg to people and say, what is she known for? Most people either come out with Facebook or they come out with Lean In. And I'll tell you, Lean In has won for a really long time. Because for a large part of her career, she had an entire foundation. She wrote a book, everything associated with her with Lean In. She's actually written a second book, which nobody can remember the title of because she didn't use the language over again. This idea around frequency and consistency around your language means that you can then consistently teach your audience because, and Chaim, I'm guessing you know about the forgetting curve. We do forget language. We do forget the descriptors over time, and it's about being consistent. It's also, especially when you're in a leadership role, it's about consistently showing up as that person. This is where, when everybody's shouting about authenticity, if the words coming out of your mouth and what you're actually doing are two different things, things are not so awesome. If when those things are in a line, you actually start to be known for something, because ultimately other people give us our language. I think we have the opportunity to teach people. It's the same reason why, if I asked you all to draw the golden arches of McDonald's, you probably could do a pretty decent job of capturing. It's why the Coca-Cola bottle is a specific shape. It's also why, interestingly, and I'm going to go back to Switzerland, you can actually tell somebody's nationality by their chocolate preferences, because how US chocolate is made is different from how UK chocolate is different from Swiss, it's different from French, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's that, what are you used to? And so while, yes, you should think about context in any interaction, you should have a certain thread of consistency, the same way you have a thread of consistency with your company name, your company colors, your company brand, and all those sorts of things. I believe that in this working world, we buy the leadership of a company and who they are and their alignment with what is the value of an organization as much as we do the idea for the company. And so how do you make sure that is personalized and yet consistent at the same time? So you're right with a caveat to that. But coming back to, like, how do you even start thinking about it is, one, like, what is the core element of what you want to teach people in that early phase? Two, going out and market testing it on people and actually seeing what lands. And just to finish pulling that thread, like, so the what do you hear question is really helpful. What I will often challenge people to do is, and Chaim, you can do with this with Nolwenn as well, is in about 48 to 72 hours, enough time to have forgotten all of this, text, WhatsApp, whatever the communication tool of choice is, and say, hey, quick question, what do you remember? And whatever Nolwenn comes back with is kind of your lean in. That's whatever landed. So you can do the both what did you hear and what do you remember, which will allow you to practice it. Then you sit here and say, okay, now I've got what I want to have land with people, because it is true and authentic to me. And it is a process in going through that. Then you can say, okay, now let's look at the sales funnel of my network. Who are, like, at the bottom of your sales funnel of your network, who are your champions? Who are the sponsors? Who are the people who are so on your team that making sure that they know how to talk about you is critically important? Going to them first and making sure that you're aligned there, and then working up through your funnel of people to say, am I teaching my network who I am and what it is I'm doing? And that is, especially if you're doing a pivot in your career, critically important, because we all have moms, or had moms. I hope we still have moms. Moms traditionally still look at us like we are little sweet people in diapers, because that's who they see us as. And I have no doubt that every single one of you has changed over your life, and you do need to go back and almost re-educate your fan base into who you are and what you're doing. And we just don't generally do that. And we all know, because I now sit here and say, this whole conversation you can have with anybody, because coming back to Chaim's conversation about potential, we've all had that person who actually not only saw the potential as us, but also helped us manifest it. Usually we were like 8, 9, 10 when that happened. And we're all eternally grateful to that person. I know I am. I've had a couple of extra characters in my life as I go along. I actually challenge you all within this. This same contract works with other people. You too can be a fairy godmother or a fairy godfather to other people. And when you go back to other people and say, so talk to me about, like, why are you awesome at what you do? Brag to me about why you're great. Like, actually have them start sharing the language, and then come back and say, look, this is what I hear. This is where I see your potential. It is literally the most powerful gift you can give to other people. I'm guessing, Chaim, we're on the same page in this one. Because when you show somebody the path of who they could be, then they can get away from all of this COVID crazy and actually start making a path for their future. And you've given them the language to do so. So a little thing. So that's a lot of kind of the high level. As Nolan actually mentioned, I do live shows every Friday where we talk about everything from, what are we talking about this week? Decision-making between opportunities. I have tools around how do you do this through email, because here is my attached resume, could you forward this along to somebody who might know me, I think is the most appalling marketing approach out there. And so how do you do that? We do these every week. I'm also writing constantly. We send out a newsletter every week with a lot of thoughts around this new working world and how now more than ever, I've been jumping up and down about this idea of why aren't we talking about the future you for 5 years now? And then COVID happened and all of a sudden people started paying attention, which is awesome. But if you want to learn more about it, we're there. And then I'm at Joanna Bloor on everything. And here's the last pro tip, if you have not purchased your name as a URL, own the Twitter handle, whatever, like get on that yesterday. Because there are 5 Joanna Bloors on the planet. I know them all. I've reached out to all of them and said, I promise not to damage our brand. And I help them out so that they don't. But you should own your names as you go forward, especially if you are looking to take things to the next level. So I'm gonna shut up. Any other questions, comments?
I just want to share one thing with you, what you said about, checking back in with Nolan and also you called it frequency. When I studied with a master trainer, and he said, when you train, when you teach, when you speak, you should know there is 80-20. People remember only 20% of what you said.
Yep.
So you better make sure that it's the right 20% they remember. And that's, I think that's critically important here as well, that they remember.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I love it. That's it. This is great, Joanna, as always.
Thank you. Well, thank you for inviting me. It was nice to see some familiar faces and nice to meet everybody else. Like, best of luck on whatever your future is manifesting for you. Like, nothing I love more than a bit of shaking up things and making change happens. It's hard in the moment, but it's always fun to go through the process because you always seem to learn something new. And if you've got any questions, Ilana knows how to find me, and feel free to connect me with anybody who needs any help. And as I said, we not only do one-on-one work, but we do a lot of team groups as well. Because boy, when you get a group of people to figure out their value statements and actually learn how to share them with each other, all sorts of very cool stuff starts to happen. Because that's when what I think we all should be optimizing for. You find a space where both your confidence about your experience and what you can do and your curiosity and excitement for the future are in perfect balance. And I sit here and I go, that balance is an up and to the right that I get excited about for people. So yeah,
totally
awesome.
Agree.